Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monty if you're new here, and today I'm just going to be going over all the books that I read in January. I had a pretty good reading month overall. I didn't have any books that I rated below 3 stars, and I had a lot of 4 and 4.5 star reads. I also didn't have any 5-star reads, but I think that's just because I'm trying to be extra picky with what books I deem 5-star worthy. But in general, I really enjoyed reading this month. I read 9 books. I don't know if I already said that. And yeah, let's just get into it. I started off the month really strong with A Man Called Uva by Fredrik Backman. I have read 4 of Fredrik Backman's books at this point, and I really love his writing style. It is very clean, very simple, very plain language, but he is able to capture just these really complex human emotions through his writing, emotions that you can't necessarily name, but that can be evoked through a moment between 2 characters or like a description. And he just does that really well. He has very genuine, flawed, real characters that you get very attached to. And I would say that this book is no different. I understand why people love this novel. I personally didn't totally jive with Uva, the main character in the book. I just found him to be a little bit too grumpy, too cranky, really rude. Some of his behaviors I found to be inexcusable. And yeah, overall, he wasn't my favorite. I didn't dislike him. I just thought he aired too much on the grumpy side. And for me, the 2 absolute stars of the book were Sonia, his wife, and Parvana, his neighbor. Those 2 women, absolute gems. They were able to look past Uva's really hard exterior and try to get more out of him and accept him for who he was. And I just found them to be absolutely delightful. I didn't really explain what this book is about, but it's about a man called Uva. He's an elderly gentleman who is retired and lives alone. And it's just about his struggles in the past that led him to where he is and how he acts. He doesn't like to let people in. He has a very hard shell around him. And over the course of the book, you just see the relationships that he develops with people and how they are able to help him thaw his frozen heart. So in the end, it's a really heartwarming story. You get to see Uva's transformation, and I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a really solid read. I just didn't necessarily like our main character. But if you really like a found family trope, then I definitely think that you should pick this one up. I followed Uva up with They Never Learn by Layne Fargo. This is a thriller, and it is so good. It is my new favorite thriller of all time. This book follows 2 perspectives. The first perspective is of a professor at a university, and she is a serial killer. She specifically targets men who have wronged women in some way, abused women, assaulted women, watched women without permission, that sort of thing. And she decides to take justice upon herself. Oh, my bad. I meant to say bring them to justice. Thank you. And just axe them. So that's the first perspective. And then the second perspective is of a freshman student at the very same university. She has an abusive father, and we're just following her story as she adjusts to the university life. And you eventually see how these 2 different perspectives obviously come together and create a cohesive narrative. There was a plot twist about halfway through the book that I thought was beautiful. I loved it. I didn't see it coming, although some people might. And then there are a lot of twists and turns towards the second half of the book. And overall, this was such a journey. It was so well done. I really liked it. I didn't give it a 5 stars, but I did give it a 4.5. And I think that if you like dark academia settings, if you like books with a lot of plot twists, if you like reading from the perspective of a serial killer, and if you like to see men who have wronged women be brought to justice, then I think that you will devour this book. After that, I read The Sound of Gravel, or I listened to The Sound of Gravel by Ruth Warrener. This is a memoir, and to backtrack a little, I am endlessly fascinated with cults, with cultish behavior, with the psychology and the groupthink behind cults. Like, I'm just truly, truly enthralled with all of that. So I gravitate to a lot of memoirs that dive into that subject or are about the lived experiences of people who grew up in cults or joined cults or whatever the case is. And this book falls into that category. It is about the author's upbringing in a polygamist family. So she grew up in a very fundamentalist Mormon colony in Mexico. She was the 39th child of her father, who had 42 kids in total. And she is just relaying her experiences growing up in that type of environment and all of the horrific, abominable things that she had to go through. It is a tough read, but it is so good, and I'm so glad that she got to share her story. If you have read books like Educated by Tara Westover, Uncultured by Danielle Young, I think, and Under the Banner of Heaven by John Krakauer, and you've liked those stories, then you will probably like this one, and I do recommend it. After reading that harrowing story, I picked up not one, not two, but 3 romances, and I did a whole romance reading vlog reading these 3 books. So you can watch that vlog if you want like more of my in-depth thoughts, but I'm going to give you a very, very brief review of these books. The first one is Hello Stranger by Katherine. I thought I was going to really love this book because she wrote my favorite romance of all time, The Bodyguard, but this one fell pretty flat for me. I thought it was okay. I didn't regret reading it by any means, but I gave it a 3 stars. There was just nothing outside of the romance that I liked about the book, and usually for a romance to be more than a 3 stars for me, I need to enjoy some other aspect of the book. There needs to be some other element that I find appealing, some other storyline or the atmosphere, something like that. And this book just didn't have that for me. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I followed that up with All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. This is a slow burn romance. It's a 500 plus page book, so it's pretty long. I never got bored with the story. I liked their romance quite a bit. I enjoyed watching their relationship develop over the course of the 500 pages. But again, it just didn't have anything else that stood out to me, so I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. And then the last romance that I read was One to Watch by Stayman-London, and I really enjoyed this one. I don't understand why more people don't talk about this, so listen to me talk about it because I thought it was really good. It is a romance, but it's about a plus-sized fashion blogger who ends up being the lead on a very bachelor-style dating show, like a reality dating show. And it's just her journey finding a man that she wants to end up with. There's a lot of discussion and commentary on fat phobia in our culture. And then this book is also sprinkled with a lot of mixed media. So there's a lot of excerpts from text message threads, blog posts, articles, Slack channels, tweets, that sort of thing, which makes for a very entertaining read and kind of switches things up every now and then, so that's pretty fun. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I think more people should pick it up. So if you are in the market for a romance book to read this February for Valentine's Day, I've got the one for you. And then I read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarrow, a book that needs no introduction. Everyone has heard about it, so I'm not even gonna go into the plot. I'm just gonna review it and give you my thoughts. I ended up giving this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The start of the book was really slow for me, and I almost DNF'd it, but my best friend told me to just hold out and wait until the threshing before I decided to give up on it. So I did that, and she was absolutely correct. Once the dragons entered the picture, my whole perspective on the book changed. I started to really, really enjoy it. And I don't know what it is about dragons, but they're so fun. I really wanted my own dragon by the end of the book, like everyone else, and they kind of made the whole story for me work. I have read other fantasy books in my lifetime. I've read Game of Thrones, I've read, Harry Potter, the Broken Earth trilogy. I've read some really, really great fantasy, and this one was just not up to par with those other books that I just mentioned. The world building I found to be really, really poorly executed. At the start of the book, our main character is going through her first trial, walking across the parapet, and as a means of calming her nerves down, she's just reciting facts to us that the readers need to know in order to have context of the world. And I thought that was pretty lazy writing. And then something else that really didn't make sense to me just throughout the whole book was all of these cadets in the war academy are just killing each other left and right. And at the same time, we're constantly hearing about how the actual army that's fighting this war to protect their kingdom, they don't have enough soldiers in their army. So why are we killing off all of these potential soldiers just for the sake of showing who is strong and who is weak, rather than letting them get trained and make it to the army? I hope that makes sense what I just said. That didn't add up for me, and it kind of irritated me for the whole course of the book. The book is written in a very YA tone, even though it is marketed as new adult, and there are definitely new adult elements, specifically like the smutty scenes in it. So there are a lot of things that I didn't like about the book, but it was a fun and fast-paced read once you get to the threshing onwards. And the last 100 pages of the book are really, really intense and really drew me in. And then it leaves you on a cliffhanger. So I am going to read Iron Flame after this, but again, this is a 3.5 stars for me. I think that if you are an avid high fantasy reader, you're gonna hate this book. If you have dabbled in some fantasy, then you're probably gonna feel like me and kind of like it. And then if you're totally new to the fantasy genre, this is like a great intro book. And I think that's why so many people like it, is because it's just so easy to read. There you have it. Those are my thoughts on Fourth Wing. I then read Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I was pretty hesitant to read this, but also kind of excited to read it. Hesitant because I had read Recursion by Blake Crouch and it ended up on my worst books of 2023. Excited because I haven't heard a single bad thing about Dark Matter. I actually looked up Dark Matter book reviews on YouTube and no one had rated it anything below a 3.5. So most people love this book. I thought that it was fine. I thought that it was okay. I liked it more than I liked Recursion. It is really, really fast-paced, very easy to read. Blake Crouch doesn't write in paragraphs. He just writes these really short paragraphs that are just sentences. So you're just moving through the book really, really quickly. It starts off on a bang. You definitely want to know what's going to happen after you read the first few pages. And there's a really, really big plot twist about 40% of the way through that I didn't see coming and that surprised me and that I thought was really, really smart. I just find Blake Crouch's plot lines to be really convoluted, and for me the science did not science. I am by no means a quantum mechanics or physics expert, but based off of the science that he presented us with, the storyline in the second half of the book just didn't make sense to me. It didn't add up completely. I thought there were several plot holes, and I can't really go into that in this review because then I would be giving away spoilers. The other part of the book that kind of irked me was there's a romance or a relationship in the story that is kind of the driving force behind the plot, at least for the second half of the book, but we aren't given that much information about this couple. Everything we're told is very superficial, very surface level, and so it was hard for me to really root for them to be reunited. And so I thought that there could have been a little bit more depth added to that relationship, or we could have been given more insight into why these two people were like made for each other. All in all, this was kind of an underwhelming read for me, but again, I thought it was better than Recursion. I just don't think Blake Crouch's writing is for me, so I'm probably not going to pick up anything else by this author. The last book that I read / listened to on audio was Paris, the Memoir. I really liked this. I really did. I decided to pick it up after reading Britney Spears' memoir and really enjoying that one as well. And I wanted to know what Paris's story was. I had heard a lot about this book and I'd heard good things about it. And I was just so curious because I was like, what could she possibly have to tell us? She really did have a story to tell. A lot of this book is about her time in various boarding schools when she was in her teens, and these schools were geared towards troubled teens, and there was just a lot of abusive shit happening in these schools, in their walls, that the public doesn't know about or didn't know about. And Paris is using this book as a way to shine a spotlight on these awful things that are taking place. And she really dives into the whole troubled teen industry as a whole. She has a lot of advocacy work for that now. And it was just something that I had never really thought about how parents will ship off their kids who are struggling rather than take the time to work with them, to kind of get to the root of the problem and just deal with their kids. And so I thought it was really good. I'm not going to rate it, but I did enjoy it just as much as I enjoyed Britney Spears' memoir. And that wraps up all the books that I read in January. I'm forgetting the date. Pretty solid start to the year. I'm very happy with all the books that I read. I always feel good when I don't regret reading something. And like I said, I just didn't regret reading any of these, even if they weren't all like new favorites of mine. They made me enjoy reading, and that's all that I can ask for. If you've read any of these books, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below, so please share. You can also let me know what some of your favorite or least favorite books in January were that you read. And I think that is all for now. Thanks for sticking around if you watched this video all the way through, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.